Welcome to Unearthly. This episode is about strange dreams. Each of the 5 stories here is about a real dream or nightmare that a person has had and how these dream events played out for them in the real world. This happened a decade ago when I was a teen. One day, I bought a used car from a guy whose wife left him. It was her car. Everything ran smoothly with the purchase of the car, but it was late by the time I got back home. I went to bed planning to clean the car the next morning. That night, I dream I'm holding a baby. I find myself in front of the house I had visited earlier, the man who sold me the car. I knock the door, he answers it, and I tell him, "I've come to give your baby back to you." He's so happy, and the dream ends there. It was a weird dream, just like all my other dreams. The next morning, while I'm cleaning the car, I discover something under the passenger seat. It's a gorgeous hand-blown glass bottle. What's inside it? It's a dark-colored bottle, so I can't see anything, and the top has a permanent seal on it. Suddenly, I'm seized by this intense, overwhelming need to drive to the man's house urgently. My heart fills up with this agonizing sadness, and I have no idea why. I could have called him, but I knew I had to go there right away. So, I drive there and ring the doorbell. I tell him I found this in the car and I needed to give it back to him, handing him the bottle. He bursts into tears and says that those are the ashes of his baby son who had died a year before. They had split the ashes into 2 bottles, one for him and the other for his ex-wife, and I guess his ex had forgotten or left her bottle in the car. I'm so very glad I brought it back, but I've never had anything give me chills like this did. It was midnight when my uncle woke up with a start. His dream had felt so unbelievably real. He knew he had to act fast. He grabbed a flashlight and ran outside. It was a lovely full moon night. Within just 10 minutes, he'd reached the jungle. He kept sprinting for another 5 minutes, but still no sign of the pond. He was gripped by a sudden fear. What was luring him deep into the jungle at this unearthly hour? What if his dream was just a ruse to get him there by a demon? He reflected on his bizarre dream again, a king cobra asking him for help. Just then, he heard a commotion exactly like in his dream. A loud hiss, followed by a ferocious, dog-like growl. And there, in a clearing by the pond, he saw a cobra and a pair of mongooses engaged in deathly battle. The first mongoose bit into the cobra's tail, and the cobra stuck back but missed. Just as the other mongoose was about to nip the cobra's head, my uncle sprang into action. Waving his flashlight, he ran yelling towards the mongooses, sending them scampering away. The cobra looked at him for a moment and then slithered silently into the forest. Well, my uncle had kept his end of the bargain. In his dream, he was by the small pond in the jungle, watching a king cobra fighting a losing battle against the mongooses. The cobra turned to him, and to his amazement, it seemed to talk to him in his mind. "Don't just stand there, help me." And that if he saved its life, no snake would ever bite him or his family. But he must also promise never to kill any snake and instruct his entire family not to do so either. He lived in a town in North India where cobras are sacred, but those caught near houses were almost always beaten to death. The cobra didn't actually speak, of course, but the message he got from it was so clear that he acted on it without a second's delay. Though 40 years have passed since this incident, my uncle still ponders about this dream, especially as he was too far away to hear the cobra and the mongoose fighting while he was asleep. One night, I had a terrifying dream. In it, I was at my family cottage with friends and we were lighting a fire. Suddenly, a huge explosion ripped through the house and I felt a searing pain in my body. With my body covered in severe burns, I ran outside and jumped into the lake for relief. I still recall my skin feeling hot and then cooling as I lay in the lake. I woke up feeling a bit disturbed by this nightmare. A few months later, I am with my friends at my family cottage. We are trying to get a fire started for the fireplace. My friend, who's usually very good at making fires, is having problems getting the fire started. It's been a while already and he just can't get it lit. My friend is so frustrated that he decides to pour gasoline on top of the fire pit to get it to start. But just as he was about to light it, his lighter stopped working. Now, my friend is quite angry and is asking if anyone has a cigarette lighter that actually works. At that very instant, I was flooded with deja vu. The explosion from my dream flashed before my eyes, and I got this horrible feeling in the pit of my stomach that something was about to go terribly wrong. "Stop it!" I yelled out, telling him to quit getting the fire started. He listened to me, but only after I explained the whole dream to him. He was actually freaked out because the lighter was working minutes before that and suddenly stopped for no reason, even though it had enough fuel to keep going. Was it deja vu or was it divine intervention? I guess I'll never know, but I'm glad I was able to remember it in the nick of time. Several years ago, I dreamt that I felt cold hard metal thrust against my temple. It was a gun belonging to a complete stranger who was now starting to press the trigger. It was scary and felt so real that I actually woke up with my heart racing. Just then, my cell phone rang, startling me. It was 3 a.m. and my boyfriend was calling. Why was he calling me at this late hour? Was something wrong? I answered the phone and my boyfriend asked, "Are you in any trouble? Is everything okay?" I told him everything's fine and that I'd been fast asleep. He said he'd had a bad dream, so he wanted to check on me. In his dream, someone was just about to shoot me. I freaked out and told him that I'd just had the same dream. We were both stunned to discover that our team details were identical. We had just started dating a few months earlier, and both of us were pretty sure that this wasn't our first lifetime together. Now we are married and still talk about this dream occasionally. My ex and I went camping near McLeod, California. We slept in the car that night and I had a weird dream. Around the car we were sleeping in appeared 8 tall beings, all of them in black robes with hoods, standing outside our car and just staring at us. Were they even human? They were 7 to 8 feet tall. They had pale skin and dark eyes, but didn't seem to have a proper mouth or nose, sort of like Voldemort from the Harry Potter books. As I watched, one entity raised both its hands and put them on the back window while looking right at me. The message I got from them was unmistakable. I needed to be extremely cautious. They were urging me not to spoil the woods. This was a warning with possible consequences for non-compliance. I sensed that these were beings with immense power and could do serious harm to us if they wished to. I felt chills running down my spine, but didn't feel I was in any danger. Later, I woke up to a bright and cheerful morning and my ex was already up. Right away, I began telling him how real my dream had felt. I said, I dreamed there were 8 strange beings around our car last night. My ex's eyes grew wide in horror. Were they wearing hoods? He asked. We discovered that everything in our individual dreams was exactly the same, right from the description of the entities to the feeling that we both had during our dreams. Both of us noticed 8 entities. While they didn't scare us, they definitely put us on edge, and we sensed that they were extremely powerful creatures and that they were warning us not to tamper with the woods. We did notice that the place was littered with drug needles despite being a very remote, isolated area. Later, we started doing research on these creatures, and we now believe they are forest spirits or watchers. Whatever they are, this is an experience I will never forget. In the second story, how did the man know that the cobra needed his help even though he was so far away from it? And in the third story, how on earth is it possible for 2 people sleeping across town from each other to have the same dream at the same time? The answer to this lies in the invisible world that's right next to our world, called the astral dimension. Everything that exists in the physical world has a counterpart in the astral world, including our own physical body, which has an astral body attached to it called Sukshma Sharira in Sanskrit. Our astral body is shaped exactly like the human body, and almost every night when we go to sleep, it leaves our physical body and goes off on its own adventures. Our brain tries to make sense of these astral travels, and these are filtered down to our conscious mind as dreams. So, in the story about the cobra, the man left his physical body while sleeping and chanced upon the snake while he was in his astral body. The same thing happened in the second story when the young man and the young woman met up in their astral bodies. But how does the astral body find its way back to its physical body later? The astral body is connected to the physical body by a thin silver cord that can stretch to infinity. The silver cord hangs around, no pun intended, with us our entire lives. Yoga teaches us that only at the time of death is the silver cord finally severed, when the astral body leaves the physical body forever. What's intriguing is that the Old Testament talks about a silver cord. Ecclesiastes 12. Remember God before the silver cord is severed and the spirit returns to God who gave it. Makes you wonder, is it the same silver cord they're talking about? What do you think? Please let me know in the comments below. And please subscribe if you